Brian said, he went to Chuck Shin's class, and he was with Chris, and that's when they presented the idea about a house in California that was being built in 3 hours and 44 minutes and 59 seconds, and that's where the idea came from. Yeah. When did he come to you and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to"?
Well, what we did as presidents, the president generally always had a project that they did during their year. And when I was president of the Tyler Association of Builders, my project for the year was the fire safety house. And I don't know, Lane probably remembers the fire safety house, but I don't know if you remember the fire safety house. But what it is, it's a tool that we made for the volunteer fire departments and the fire department that they could move around. It was on a trailer, and it was a little miniature house, and it had smoke detectors, and it taught the kids at the schools, if your house is on fire, this is how you escape out of this, is how you come down the stairs, this is what you look for, this is, and they'd fill it up with smoke.
Like a mobile tutorial.
Yeah. And one thing that I always remember that it sticks in my mind is we don't take your batteries out of the smoke detectors for your toys. So, yeah, and so that was my project, and Brian came to me and he said, Brian's always trying to beat what I do, and he said, what am I going to do? And he said, I think I'll just build a house and we'll break the record. And this is somewhere in there. I was going to tell you about Chuck Shin and part of our education and part of the system growth. And I started talking about identifying all the different parts, and every part in a house has a piece number. And Chuck, we listed it all out on big sheets on my drawing table. And then Chuck said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to put each one of those, and we're going to put it on a little card. And he made a big slide thing, and we taped it on the office wall. And this room doesn't even have any walls, as long as that was, where we could slide this stuff up and down, and we had them stacked up and down there to where parts of this schedule would overlap, and how to bring everything. And he said, you got to do all of this before you can computerize it. Because I had a software program that Jim Carlisle had. Well, I started out with Lotus Symphony, and I started doing my own estimates and stuff on the computer. But then I bought a software program, and I got into cost code accounting, and my knowledge wasn't there, so I had to go and learn all this cost code stuff. And then we started developing more, and then actually Brent and Brian wrote all of our software for our industry right now. And it's, I think it's the most sophisticated of any place anywhere. And I don't think anybody has anything as sophisticated as our software program, and Brent and Brian have written that whole thing off of our systems that we created first on paper, and then the computer just makes it a whole lot easier just to accelerate this whole thing. So, and that's getting into the system that was created and made the 2-hour house possible. And it's all about systems. You got to have a system, and and it's just then you start polishing the system, and then you start working on timelines. And like our system that we use is got float days in there, because something, if it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. So you're going to have to make up. You have weather days. You have supply problems. You never know what's going to happen in the middle of a job, because a job takes a while to do. There might be a hurricane that pop up, and then all of a sudden you have no OSB. One time we got a bunch of bad sheetrock that I remember. Then you have hailstorms. Take out all the roofing. You have a difficult getting that. Then you get in the trades, and you send all. You have a tornado or someplace around here, and they send everybody's over there working. It's you gotta be flexible with everything. And that's the reason why we put float days in our schedule. And I know that Brian had float time in in this thing somewhere when he created that, because you got to have a buffer someplace. And but they did an amazing job of polishing all of that timeline for that 2-hour house. And it's Brian doesn't know how to. I don't think Brian can do a lot of stuff now, but I don't think he doesn't know how to do a lot of that stuff, or didn't at the time when he did this house. And that's where he put those trades together, and the team, and they'd all come together, and they'd figure out a solution, and they'd practice it, and they'd keep polishing it and polishing it. Dick Shulip was another. He really.
The thing is, with all the principles I learned in business, for me personally, you got to have teamwork, collaboration, efficiency, time management, organization. You got to get a group of people to believe that it can be done. But one thing I've realized with every one of those principles, you can't have it without solid communication. And that's one thing that they, with a 1.5-year planning process, but everybody communicating with each team and then trusting them to do their part and figuring out how to make it done. And, it's I don't know, to me, it's an amazing, everybody, words and symbols are interpretive based on life experience. So if you said collaboration, that means different people based on what they've seen in their lifetime. But when you actually see the collaboration that worked together to pull this off, to me, it's an amazing feat to pull something like, 579 volunteers to work together in less than 3 hours to build a 2,300 square foot house. To me, is an amazing feat. I mean, it's 20 years later. To see that ever done again and planned out, like you said, with the buffers in place, is something that people can really identify with, because a house is a simple analogy, is kind of the way I see it.
It is. You could, with video conferencing today, I think you could do a lot better, but the era of the texting and just the old pagers and voicemails and stuff like that, and telephone calls, that's you got to have face-to-face in it, where you're just sitting face-to-face and talking to people and reacting to them, because you can say one thing in words, but your facial expressions and your hand gestures, whatever you might do, whether you got a happy face or a frowning face or somebody sitting over there on the side, like this, or if they're laughing at you behind your back, and it's the meetings that actually took place where they were all present face to face, talking, discussing, working things out, not sitting there typing something and then reading the screen and working on something else and then looking at that and then typing back and doing all that stuff. So it's the communications. That's a real weak link in our society today, and it's got to be polished, and we got to do better. And I hate to bring up something like what happened down there on the Guadalupe and Camp Mystic with those girls and all that, but no electronics. But at the same time all that was going on, one of our granddaughters was counseling out at Pine Cove, and there no cell phones, no electronics. They can't. She, even as a counselor, doesn't have a phone out there. So it's but it teaches those kids. They go a week without any communications and none of that. And boy, I can see what it's done for my granddaughter. And because I got to spend Sunday afternoon with her, and all of them the other day. But anyhow, you're getting into that stuff. I get sidetracked on this conversation a lot, and I'm real good about that. When you're 79 years old, your mind just isn't like it used to be. So,
Steve, were you a cheerleader from the very start when the 2-hour house came up?
No, well.
Or did you kind of like, man, Are you sure you want to?
No, I knew it could be done.
Gotcha.
And I knew Brian was very capable of doing it, but I knew also how much time it was going to take to do it.
Exactly.
And but I knew that there again, you reap what you sow. He gave a lot into that 2-hour house, and man, it took him to a different level in business too. And he learned, and then but at the end of it, and it's real sad. At the end of it, and that was kind of an end of an era. And Gloria Gilley retired right after that, and we got a new executive officer, and everybody was wanting to go a different direction. What you have to do, keep the thing moving. You don't want to hold on to all that old for too long. You got to change command and just keep it going. And I knew it was going to take a lot of time, but but we had it running real good at the office at that end of it. And I think actually I retired or somewhere right around that. I was off when he built the practice house, Janet, but I remember calling him and after to see how it went, and he said, well, we're actually up at Armadillo Willie's. Carl Keller, you ought to call Carl Keller and get some input from him too. He comes into Tyler a lot. And because there were a lot of meetings up there, Carl Keller was around a lot of it, so all of them, and at Armadillo Willie's. And they were up there, and he said it was a disaster. And he said, but Brian wouldn't give up. But he was down pretty bad that day. But we might have been in Colorado. I don't have any idea. We were off traveling in our bus somewhere. So
It's what you learn too after it fails. I mean, you got the cement dried too fast, the cement mix. You had boots dry, I guess, stuck in the cement, and then the other practice. We were going to do 2 houses, and one of them was gone in, I guess, in the first 30 minutes, and then the other one took like 6 hours to finish it or whatever it was. But
yeah, actually, I think the way I kind of remembered, he was going to build 3 of them, and but then it got down to 2, and then one of them fell apart, but the other one was salvageable, and Brian. But after it was all over with, nobody really wanted anything to do with any of that, and Brian went in and bought all of that, took it out of the association's hands, and finished that house and sold it real quick. And the 2-hour house actually sold too, and real quick. And
for what you learn after, like for example, they realized that with the cement trucks, you can't hear them, so they ended up using the flags. I mean, that's a form of communication. And then they ended up having separate teams in different colored shirts. They knew who was supposed to be in there and who was not. So those are a form of communication that you set in place based on what didn't work, and you figure out a way to make it work.
Well, in condensing all stuff like power, air, and it was there was so much credit due to so many people, and it couldn't happen without every single individual. Everybody was a part of that, and every part was very critical, but there was redundancy built into the whole schedule to where this would cover if a failure or something. It was all thought through very, very, very cautiously and detailed to the ultimate, and it wasn't to the minute, it was to the second. There were Brian's everything that he showed me. I'd go in there in his office and ask him what's going on or how's it coming, and he would. That's about as involved as I got into it. Was he just kind of kept me abreast, and but they did a great job.
What's funny is that we've interviewed about 11 or 12, and we asked them what did the 2-hour house do for them 20 years later in their business and in their personal life. And a lot of them had a lot of reflection about that they didn't realize what they learned from that project, how it really applied, and how they used it into their business life, and in their personal life. Just sharing that story, because a lot of people don't believe it. They don't really understand the magnitude of what really happened. Then bringing it to life, I think, is important, because everybody has a 2-hour house in their life, whether it's your community, whether it's your business or your personal life. We got things that we want to accomplish and the things that are important to us. And if we can inspire and motivate people to be proactive in whatever they want to pursue, and they can use some of the 2-hour house lessons by when your visions are clear, your decisions are easy, and if you know where you want to go, and like you said way back, the common theme is finding mentors, people that have been there, learning from mentors, getting involved in associations, and learning from each other, and really seeking it out. There's so many people out there that's got tremendous knowledge out there, that if we can urge younger people to go and seek it out, people are there willing to teach. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, everybody's got it in it, but to me, what's kind of brought to my mind is, through this whole achievement of the 2-hour house, is the importance of the family, and the importance of God in your lives, and family, and spending time with your wife and with your children, and bringing them up, because none of this would have ever happened. Brian would have never got to this point if it wouldn't have been for the time and investment that Janet and I put into Brian and Brent both, raising them up and teaching them the business. And that's what I feel like the greatest achievement that was shown to me through this whole thing. So, and don't stop it when they build a 2-hour house. Keep it going.